Hello. Hello. Welcome. Welcome back to ResolveCon. Hey, I'm so glad you're here. It's been such an amazing day. We've had so many amazing presenters and gosh dang it, I've learned so much. I had to take a bunch of notes. I have to unpack this for a while and our next presenter is going to be no different. But first, we got to thank our sponsors because these guys are the dopeness, all right? Blackmagic Design, thank you so much for all your support over all these years, and thank you for supporting ResolveCon, as well as DV Resolve, Motion VFX, Whip Templates, and Pixel Tools. You guys are amazing. So make sure to check these guys out. They are wonderful. Also, if you don't know, we run a little company called Ground Control, and we do training on Resolve and on Fusion. And if you go to groundcontrol.film, you can use the coupon code RC25GC to get 25% off any and all of our courses that are available now. And that's going to happen throughout the weekend. All right. Now, a little reminder, if you haven't registered, make sure that you register so that you can win some cool stuff. We have awesome free stuff that we're giving away after every presentation. So we're going to give out another batch of stuff here in just like an hour or so. So make sure that you're all signed up, and we're also going to be giving away more tomorrow. Very, very exciting. So also make sure, if you haven't, that you check out our VIP tickets because this we have one more day of the free ResolveCon, but if you get a VIP ticket, you get twice as much ResolveCon. So we're going to be diving a little bit deeper with our presenters, and it's not going to be streamed on YouTube. It's not going to be posted anywhere. It's just going to be kind of like a private Zoom call with you and some lucky other VIP people. So that's very exciting. Make sure to check that out. All right, let's get to our next presenter, who is just a handsome man, a wonderful dad, and just such a great dude. Let's bring him on here, shall we? Oh, we got old Jason. Hey, you doing, buddy?
Hey, man, what's happening? How are you?
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Appreciate the kind words, and it's been awesome so far. Been tuning in when I can, watching the other presenters and stuff. Been really good. Been awesome stuff. I'm always learning stuff. Always.
Yeah, man, it's been wonderful. Well, I'm excited for your segment here. I know there's a lot of people that just kind of just like the color page and the Fusion page, they kind of just stay away from the Fairlight page just because it looks really complicated and they feel like it's intimidating. And so I'm excited for you to take us through that a little bit. And I'll let you go for it, man.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, so today we've got Fairlight audio mixing for beginners. And while we typically want to jump into Fairlight to do our audio, there's so much we can do even in the edit page now. But just starting off with audio in general, it's so important in your videos. You spend all this time and effort working on your videos, making it look good, getting different scenes, doing all this fun, cool Fusion, color grading stuff. But a lot of people might not want to jump in and work with the sound too much. And thankfully, nowadays a lot of microphones are pretty good. And, if you record things pretty decent, you can maybe make out okay. But you want to make sure that people are engaged with your videos, that they can hear it good, that they get a good, feeling and vibe from your videos with your music, your sound effects, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to talk about how do we start to think about our audio, in this case, dialogue. How do we start to work through it in an easy way that makes sense, where we can, take away things that don't sound good. We can balance things out. We can make it sound a little bit better and just really take whatever we're starting with and make it better, right? Without it being too hard of a process. So the big thing when you start editing any audio is, where does it start? It actually starts there, right there, on the camera. So you want to make sure if you can get a good microphone, you got one. But even if you can only use the microphones that are built in your camera, you want to make sure that you still do the best job that you can recording with that microphone. And even though they're notoriously not good, you still got to try and make the best of it, right? So on your camera, when you're recording, you want to start with trying to get some decent audio levels before we even jump into Resolve. And you want to try and aim for around minus 18 to minus 12 dB. Somewhere in that range is going to do you good and leave you enough, room above your clip, headroom they call it, to make sure we're not peaking or cutting or clipping or anything like that. So we want to try and get the best we can out of the camera first, right? And the process that we're going to go through here in this session is really something that you can use whether you're in DaVinci Resolve 1, DaVinci Resolve 25, whether you're in a different program. It doesn't matter. It's all basic stuff here that will all work in the free version of DaVinci Resolve. I've got one little tip that's in studio only because I have to mention it because it's just that good. But everything you could do in the free version. So the process is kind of the process, and the way that you would approach your audio and the way you want to edit it and stuff is going to be the same regardless of program or whether you're in Edit tab, Fairlight, it doesn't matter. It's all going to be a very similar process. The tools might look a little bit different, but it's all going to be a very similar process. So the first thing we want to do is talk about where in Resolve can we actually edit our audio. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we can now edit our audio in a lot of different spots, right? Of course, in Resolve here, bottom, spend a lot of time in there. I've got a lot of videos on all that kind of stuff, the cool things you can do in there. And if you want like unlimited access to anything audio, the Fairlight is going to be where you want to go. But in the edit page, we've been able to do some basic things, but now we can do a whole lot more. And actually, a little sneak peek here, we're going to spend a lot of time in the edit page and just jump into Fairlight for a few things. And the reason I thought about presenting it this way is because some of you guys might be a little scared to jump into Fairlight, right? It's new buttons, new knobs, new dials, new layout, new interface, but you probably spend a lot more time in the edit page and you're probably a lot more familiar with what's going on there. Especially if you're relatively new to audio, Fairlight could seem intimidating, but the tools that they've added in Resolve 19 and 20 and the latest version here, 20.1 or whatever it is, we can do so much of it right in the edit page. You don't even have to jump into Fairlight. And it's the same tools, the same techniques, the same process. So I'm going to show you a lot of it right here in the edit page. So hopefully that kind of takes a little bit of the fear out of editing your audio, and you don't have to worry as much about jumping into Fairlight unless you want to do more advanced things. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then you can also edit in the Cut tab too, right? We've got some more audio tools and things that were added in here. I got to be honest, I don't really use the Cut tab. I jump over there once in a blue moon just to take a peek, but I pretty much never use it. So Cut tab or Edit tab is where it's at for me. So we're going to get started here, and I got a little clip. So if you guys were able to download it, it's just a clip of me in my little shop basement, right, with recording. I have a shotgun mic on top of my camera, and I was, a little bit of a distance away, so it doesn't sound great. But let me just play through a little bit of it here, and then we're going to get started kind of thinking about our audio. What do we want to do, and how are we going to do that? So let me just play a little bit of this for you. I'm down here in my shop today because we're going to be taking some audio to town and working on it in the shop here. Well, it's kind of in DaVinci Resolve, but we're going to take your audio and we're going to make it sound the best that we can. Whether you're recording on a shotgun mic like I am right now, that's attached to my camera. Maybe you just have the internal microphones on your camera, and that's okay. Whatever you got, we're going to take it and we're going to take it through a process of working with the audio, and we're going to make it sound better. How's that sound? Pretty good, right? So no matter what kind of audio you've got, whether you've got DaVinci Resolve 1, DaVinci Resolve 50, you work in a different program, you don't even use Resolve, it doesn't matter. The basics are the basics here, and how we process and work through our audio is going to be the same regardless of what program you're using and how you're doing it. So let's jump into Resolve here, and I'm going to teach you step by step how to go through this audio editing process and make that audio that you got right now sound even better. Oh, you can use this sample or grab one of your own clips, and you can use that as a sample too. So let's jump into it. Learn some audio editing. Let's go. All right, so there's our little sample that I got and provide for you guys to play with a little bit. So when we start editing our audio, one of the first things we want to think about, and Team 2 Films, when they had their presentation, they talked a little bit about audio. They mentioned this too, is that you want to split things out into different tracks. Now, if it's a video like this where it's just me, I'm in one location, okay, there's nothing to split out, right? But if I had another person there, we want to separate out our audio into different tracks, me and the other person. If we had different microphones in the same location. So maybe I filmed 2 different times, same location though, but I use different microphones, I'd want to separate those into 2 different tracks. If we were using, say, the same microphone and I filmed myself and I was inside, outside, then I was on in a different location, we want to separate all those out into different tracks. And the reason is that you want to have the flexibility to be able to edit your audio specifically for that location, that person, and that microphone, or that, the way it was recorded. You want to have the ability to work with that specific piece of audio. And that's why we want to kind of break that out into different tracks. So you can have, I don't know how many thousands of tracks or whatever in Resolve for audio. So don't be worried about like having too many tracks or whatever, but separate things out so that way it makes it easy for you to go through one location, one person at a time, and kind of work with that audio, because you're going to need to make slightly different changes based on, whoever's speaking, based on the location, based on the microphone. So separate things out as you need to, so that way you can work through them and work through this process that I'm going to show throughout the talk here, each track and each, person, microphone, or whatever it might be. So that's important. Separate things out the best that you can. Now, the next thing to know that when we start working through the audio edit here is that a lot of these things that we're going to do individually seem kind of subtle, right? They may not seem like they're making a whole bunch of difference, but at the end of the day, once we've done all of our editing, we should be able to do a before and after and hear like a good improvement, right? Now, is it going to be the best? It may not be the best, right? Because it depends on how we recorded it. But the goal is, let's make it better than it was to start with, right? We want to make it easy for our listeners to hear. We want to make it easy for people to understand if it's dialogue and speaking. And we want consistent volume, whether it's, if it's just dialogue, we want to make sure it's consistent. If we have dialogue, music, sound effects, it's a short film, we want to make sure that, our audience doesn't have to sit there like this and ride their remote control up and down for the quiet parts, the loud parts, and all that. So the first thing with this clip here, let's make some observations. Well, what did we notice? One, it sounds a little hollow. Two, I feel like the audio levels are a little low, because if you guys notice looking at the meter over here, I'm just
down here in my shop
look at it real quick.
We're going to be taking some audio to...
It's around minus 20 dB, which is a little bit low. And there's probably some areas that we could probably fix up a little bit or help kind of remove some problem areas so that they don't become bigger problems as we move through the audio editing process. So the first thing that I like to do is set the levels where I want them to be for our clip, so that we're getting started with a piece of audio that's got good levels. Now, in this clip, I've got, it's one clip all the way through, so I can just kind of listen and do it once here. If you have multiple clips, it might be a little bit different on, going through individually, depending on, maybe some of those clips are really quiet, maybe some are loud, and you got to adjust them individually. But you can use the same basic concept we're going to talk about for this one clip and apply it to other clips. And actually, if you're going to be around for the VIP session, I got other tips for you on quicker ways to do that. So another reason to sign for a VIP session, which I'm doing mine, I think, Saturday. So we want to set our levels. And in order to do that, you've got a couple different places that we can set our levels, which is essentially like the volume of our clip. On our clip itself, we've got this white line right here, which is the gain line. So we can grab that, boost it up, or bring it down to make it louder or quieter. It's going to tell us how many dB we are raising there, so it's 12.99 dB, or how much we're reducing it, and that's designated by the negative number. Now, a little bonus tip here, if you hold your shift key while you hold on this gain line, it'll allow you to be a lot more precise with your adjustment, right? It's just going to make the dB level not change as fast. So that's one way that you can do it. Now, another way that we can do it is to open up our inspector. And we can come to the audio tab right here. And in here, we have the volume section, right? So if I were to grab the volume and move it up and down, you can see it's doing the exact same thing as that gain line that's right on the clip. So a lot of times I'm going to use the gain line on the clip because then I don't have to open the inspector. It's right there. And what I want to do is listen to the clip. I want to watch my meters down here. And the goal is to raise or lower the volume so that the audio level is generally around minus 10 dB. That's where I like to set it. And that's going to give us enough headroom above our clip, or the audio clip, so that we're not going to clip on anything. And it'll give us room to work with it as we move through the process here. So let's just reset this. I'm going to play through it, and I'm going to just watch my meters. It's going to go a little above, a little below, but I kind of want to be in that minus 10 range, or right around here. And actually, before we do that, the other way you can edit it is to adjust the gain or volume of your audio clip, or in this case, your audio track, is with this fader, right? This fader will adjust the entire track, whereas the gain line on the clip and the volume in the inspector is only going to adjust that specific clip. But this fader will work the entire track. But I don't recommend that you set your audio levels with the fader, because the fader is better used at the end of the audio process where we want to mix and blend things together between our dialogue, different people speaking maybe, sound effects, music. It's a lot easier to use the faders to blend the tracks together once we've got our levels set in a good spot than it is to have to go through and adjust every single clip, using the volume slider or the gain line on the clip. So we're going to start by working with our levels here. We're going to use the gain line on the clip. I'm just going to play the clip, watch my meters, and try and get it around that minus 10 dB. We'll just start right there.
But we're going to take your audio and we're going to make it sound the best that we can. Whether you're recording on a shotgun mic like I am right now that's attached to my camera. Maybe you just have the internal microphones on your...
All right, so that's pretty good, right? It's about that minus 10 dB. It's a little bit under, maybe a little bit over in some spots. That's okay, because we're going to balance that out a little bit more as we move forward. But let's see, we ended up at like 9, and that can work out pretty good. Now, another thing that you might have heard about is normalizing your audio, right? So if I was to come to my clip, right-click, and go to Normalize Audio Levels, this is kind of like a way that Resolve will kind of automatically set the levels for you. Now, you'll see that it comes up with a YouTube normalization, and for me, I don't like using this one on individual clips. And even though I'm uploading to YouTube, the reason I don't like to use this on individual clips is because I find that sometimes if I used this setting to normalize all of my audio clips, my music, my dialogue, sound effects and things, once I get to the end of the whole process, when I look at everything as a whole, I don't want it to be like too loud, right? Because then YouTube's going to come in and they're going to compress the whole thing down on me. So if I use normalize, which occasionally I do, a lot of times I'll just set it manually because for me it's just as quick. But if I use normalize and we click this little drop down, we do have all different ways that we can normalize our audio. A lot of times I'll pick the sample peak program because that's going to give us a target level of -9, and that's generally going to be pretty close to where I might set it manually. It's actually sometimes a little bit quieter, but just like a little bit. So if you wanted to just use a one-click option to set your levels, normalizing it is a good way to go. And I like using the sample peak program. You'll see, you may have heard like around the interwebs, the YouTubes and stuff, that sometimes people say like put your dialogue at like a -2 dB, right? So if I was looking at my meters over here, like a -2, but I find again, if you did everything that loud, by the time you get to the end of your process and everything gets added in, it's going to be too loud, right? It's going to be too much. So the levels and things that I mentioned throughout this video and all my other videos and stuff is kind of where I set them so that at the end of the audio process, we can master it and then we can adjust the overall loudness of everything together for YouTube, for me, or whether it's Netflix or wherever it might be. We can adjust the loudness and master it all at the end, and we're going to be sure that nothing's going to clip on us or we shouldn't have any problems as we move forward. So normalize, you can use it, no problem there. It's up to you. If you want to use a different one, that's okay too. But I generally like to just grab the gain line and I'll set my clips manually. And for me, most of the time I'm in the same location. So if I have to boost everything up by 5 dB, it's like all my clips, all my cuts would go up by 5. But, and the other option too, I think you can, if you selected multiple clips, you can normalize the clips individually where it will look at just that clip and set levels of just that clip. Or you can do it relative to each other, so it would look at all your clips in your timeline kind of like like they're all one big clip, right? So just options on how you can do it. It's up to you. So with the first thing done here, I think we're pretty good for our levels to get started and move on to the next step. So setting levels is always first, right? We need good audio signal to start with. Now, the next thing that I like to do as we get into the editing process, we actually have to jump into Fairlight for it because there's not an option to do it or change the setting here in the Edit tab, at least not that I've seen, unless it's hidden. Could be. So let's jump over into Fairlight real quick. Musical notes at the bottom. And the thing I want to change is the order. So make sure your mixer's open right here. And over here, we've got our order. Now, by default, the order is the way that Resolve processes your audio, right? So it's got your audio, and then in what order do we do stuff to it, right? There's different ways that things can happen to your audio as far as effects, dynamics, EQ, and the track level effects. So in the order here, the default is effects, dynamics, and EQ. Now, depending on how you edit your audio, if you use a lot of third-party plugins or you just like to use, the effects plugins first, you can use whatever order you want. There's no really right or wrong order. It's just what's the desired result that you want and how do you want to get there. So for me, a lot of times I like to click on this drop down, and I like to use the EQ, the dynamics, and then the effects. And the reason that I like to do that is because, one, I'm going to set my levels. Then I want my audio clip to have a little EQ applied, because with the EQ, my goal is to remove or take away anything that sounds harsh. Okay, I want to get rid of things that don't sound good. Then after that, I want to take my dynamics, and I'm going to use some compression and maybe an expander in there. And I want to take my dynamic range from something like this, right? Quiet's way down here, loud way up here. And I want to bring them a little bit closer, right? I don't want them to be even, but I want them to be a little bit closer. And the reason for that is because of what I had said earlier. We don't want our audience to be there with their remote control like, it's too quiet, I got to turn it up. And then it gets to a loud part, and it's like, oh, it's too loud, I got to turn it down, right? We want it to be balanced, right? So the quiet parts are going to be quieter, but the loud parts are going to be louder, but there's not such a huge difference between the two that the audience needs to ride the volume on their remote control. So we do that in our dynamics. And then our effects, I like to, add a couple things to sweeten it up a little bit at the end. Now, like I said, you could change these around. It doesn't matter if you use a lot of third-party, plugins and effects and stuff. Maybe you're just using effects like an EQ, effect or a plugin, and that's perfectly fine. You can move things around however you'd like. Now, another thing to know when it comes to the order that your audio is processed is that the track level effects hit the audio before the EQ, dynamics, and effects. So the way we kind of see it in the mixer here is kind of the way that it gets applied to your audio. And unless this changed, this has always been my understanding once these all kind of came out after talking with some audio folks over at Blackmagic. So unless it's changed and I missed it, you have your audio. Any track level effects are going to be applied to it. So like if you wanted voice isolation, boom, that's going to be applied to your audio clip. And then it's going to go through and work on EQ, dynamics, effects, or whatever order you select here for that stuff to be applied to your clip. So I think it's just important to know that this stuff would happen before this stuff down here. So just an important thing to know. So once we've got the order set, we could jump back into the edit tab. So you don't have to, nothing too scary here in Fairlight. Get back to the edit tab and we're gonna be able to do pretty much everything else over here. So when it comes to levels, since we're talking about that, a real quick note for music. If you have music underneath dialogue, I like to set that around -10, well, actually, if it's under dialogue, between -20 and -30 dB. So down in this range down here. And usually that's going to do a pretty good job of letting your audio come through or your dialogue come through without it, kind of clashing too much. If there's no dialogue and you just have music playing through your scene, I like to put it again around that -10 dB, because I find if you drop in music in your, in your timeline there, music is already going to be mastered and kind of set up so that it's got like, max volume. Like those guys push it, they want it to be like, boom, in your face. So a lot of times I find when you bring it into Resolve, it's too much. So pretty much all the music, even if there's no dialogue, there's no nothing around it, I'm going to drop it down to -10 dB. And again, that's going to make it so that at the end of the whole process, when we try to master it and set our overall loudness for the whole video, we're going to be in a good spot. Because if you left that music as loud as it is when you first drop it in, we're going to run into problems when you try and master it and just get the overall loudness good for your video at the end of the day. So that's music. Sound effects, they can range all over the place. Depends on the impact you want it to have, whether it's far away, close, is it explosions? They can range from anything to anything, really. So the sound effects are up to you. All right, moving forward with our dialogue clip here. So flip over my notes here. We got our signal chain order. So we want to think about, do we need to do any noise reduction? Because sometimes you want to do this first in the process, especially if we're going to use something like voice isolation, which is going to hit that clip first in the signal chain as we process through our audio. So in this particular clip, I don't know that I need too much of it or any of it really, but let's just give it a quick listen.
Your camera, and that's okay. Whatever you got, we're going to take it and
probably doesn't really need it, but and the voice isolation is that one studio thing that I want to mention. Like if you have trouble with background noise, I mean, it's like a magical unicorn. It does a great job on all kinds of background noise. It's really impressive. I mean, that alone is worth the price of studio, on top of everything else that you get when you get studio. But voice isolation does an amazing job. I use it anytime I need to get rid of background noise. And some of the good things about it, if I just turn it on here, and pop out our little menu here, is that you don't need to run it at 100% all the time. And a matter of fact, I recommend that you don't, because it's just going to kind of, sometimes it can make it sound a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Digital, a little distorted almost, like it just sounds a little funky. So a lot of times you might only need like between 10 and 20%, and that should be good enough, you know? So I'll just add it onto this clip. Let's just give it a little listen and see if it does any difference here.
Whatever you got, we're going to take it and we're going to take it through a process of working with the audio, and we're going to make it sound better. How's that sound? Pretty good, right? So no matter what kind of audio you've got, whether you've got DaVinci Resolve 1, DaVinci Resolve...
So it helps a little bit. It helps get rid of a little bit of that reverb. Now, typically this tool doesn't work great on reverb. Like if you're in a space that's got a lot of echo and stuff, it doesn't work great on that. It works great on any other kind of background noise. Like you got a fan, you got construction equipment, you got an air conditioner, you got music playing. It'll take the music out while you're talking. But it doesn't always do a great job with reverb. So that's one thing to know. And here, I could use it or not. In this case, I'm not going to use it, only so that way you can see what it's like when we use everything that's available in the free version. But the voice isolation, I mean, I can't recommend it enough. It's just such a great tool and does a great job. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and just turn it off, and we're not going to use it. Now, if there was other background noise, you don't have studio, you only have the free version, how else can we deal with that? Well, one of the ways is to use the built-in noise reduction effect. So in the Edit tab, we can apply that onto a clip or onto a track. So right here, we come to our effects and down to audio effects. And we've got noise reduction right here. So I can click, hold, and drag and drop it on a clip, or more likely, I'm going to put it on a track. So let's go ahead and drop it on my track. Now, one of the things with this, because it's an effect, it's actually kind of getting applied towards the end of our audio editing process, right? Because we set our order to be EQ, dynamics, then effects. And since this is an effect, it's actually going to get applied at the end of the process. But just so you can see what the tool is here, in my opinion, this one doesn't work great. It's okay sometimes. I can't say that I've ever actually used it and been like totally happy with it. Because I have studio, I would always go voice isolation over the noise reduction. But if you have a little bit of background noise, like just a little bit, you could try this tool out, hit the auto speech maybe, and see how it does. Again, I'm not overly impressed with this one. I don't think it's ever been that great. But anyway, it's there, and I would try it if you're only in the free version. So let's say I don't want to keep that one because I don't want to use it on this clip. So I'm going to select my track here, and I can delete it a few ways right here in the Edit tab. I can come to my effects right here and delete it right here. Or if I wanted to open it back up, I could do it also right here in the inspector. By clicking that little icon, it's going to bring the effect up. And actually, I'm sorry, the only way to delete it's right there. If I wanted to open it up another way without having the inspector open, so if it was like this, I could come down in my mixer here and just double click on the effects. And it's not bringing it up for me. Well, usually it does. Maybe I got to open it up here. All right, so maybe we just work with it in the inspector. Usually I thought it pops it up there because like the EQ, boom, pops it up for us. So I guess you just have select a track and you'll see them right here, but we don't want it in this case, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Goodbye. So let's close down our inspector, close our effects. Now, another way that you can deal with a little bit of background noise is to use an expander or gate, which is in our dynamics panel, which we'll talk about that in a minute here. And that's also in the free version, as well as that noise reduction effect that's in the free version too. So let's get into, let's say we've taken care of any background noise that we want to. If you have it, let's jump into working with the EQ a little bit. So again, I can just double click the EQ over here in my mixer. So just double click and it's going to bring up our EQ for us. And another thing that I like to do, scooch this out of the way, when I'm working with my audio is just to loop the audio. So I don't have to keep hitting stopping, moving the playhead, going back and all that. So to do that, we could do it right here in Edit, zoom out a little bit. I'm just going to set an out point, an in and an out point. So if you had somewhere that wasn't at the beginning of your timeline, set an in and out point. Make sure you've got your loop icon on here. And then when it gets to the end of your out point there, it'll just loop back and start playing again. So that comes in handy, especially if you're working with a small section of audio. So here we have the EQ. Now the EQ is great, and there's a couple ways you can think about using the EQ. Typically, when it comes to EQ, you want to make a cut in a given frequency before you boost things, right? So the idea here is we want to find things that don't sound good, sounds a little harsh to our ear, and we want to remove it. We want to take it out. So with our points here on our EQ, we can grab any one of them. We can move it up, and that would be increasing or making a frequency louder. Or we can remove a frequency by bringing it down. So we can move them around like this. Now, one way to think about using your EQ is to make broad changes. And a lot of this is kind of going to depend on your audio clip, your microphone, how it was recorded, things like that. But you might want to make a broad change. So I might take like 0.3, and I can use my middle mouse wheel to just broaden that out. And this is affecting what they call the Q factor. It's just like, are we affecting a little bit of frequencies or a lot of frequencies? And you can do it with your middle mouse wheel, which is sweet. If you don't have a middle mouse wheel, just use the button knob down here, the Q factor knob. So you can come in and make big sweeping changes like this and, do whatever it is that you want to do to your audio. Or you could be a little more surgical with it, I would say. So if we took my, for example, point number 3 and I made it really fine, then we're going to only affect a small amount of frequencies, and we can find the problem areas and then try and get rid of them, okay? So let's go ahead and reset all this. Now, I kind of like to go with a little bit more of the surgical method versus the broader kind of method, but it really, like I said, depends on your recording and on, your microphones and things like that. It's going to just vary. But one of the first things that we want to do is thinking about adding in our band 1. And a lot of times you could just turn it on, and you could leave it there if you want. And what this is going to do is get rid of these lower end bass type frequencies that we just don't need when it comes to dialogue. Now, these changes we're going to talk about are like specifically for dialogue. You can do other things with music and sound effects and whatnot. But specifically for dialogue, we don't need the stuff on the low end of our frequency range here because there's just not much there when it comes to vocals, right? Unless you're like what they call them, a bass singer or whatever. So typically, you could just turn it on and leave it, or I like to dial it up a little bit, and you can listen to your clip and see if you hear anything. Sometimes you won't, but it's still good to cut this out even if you don't hear anything, like with your ear, because we just don't want that stuff to muddy things up later, right? Because there's information down there, and as we move forward editing our audio, we don't want it to muddy things up. So I usually like to set this somewhere around 100 maybe a little bit higher depending on, my clip and stuff. But let's play through it, and we'll just drag it up and see if we hear any difference.
I'm down here in my shop today because we're going to be taking some audio to town and working on it in the shop here. Well, it's kind of in DaVinci Resolve, but we're going to take your audio and we're going to make it sound the best that we can, whether you're recording on a shotgun mic like I am right now.
So hopefully when I brought it up farther, you guys could hear that difference there where it kind of got really hollow, right? And where it is now, around 109 or so, I'm just going by ear, right? I'm not necessarily looking at the numbers and saying, oh, I need to be at 110. It's really, you got to listen to it and you got to learn how to interpret what you're hearing and figure out, okay, well, what do I do with that? Or how is adjusting the EQ going to make what I'm hearing, sound different? And when it comes to those lower end bass frequencies, we can get rid of most of them. But in this case, I think 109 sounds kind of good. Now, there's not a whole lot going on, but we did see, if I just mute this, when I play through, it's not going to come through because it's muted. Well,
camera,
if we look,
and that's okay. Whatever.
Over here, you can see the lighter blue in the background there is what is originally in the clip, and then the brighter blue line is where our audio is now.
Whatever you got, we're going to take it, and we're going to take it through.
So you can see we're cutting out some of that lower end stuff that might just kind of garble stuff up or make it a little bit not so great later on. So that is the first thing that I like to do when it comes to audio, and that's going to give you a good start to kind of help get rid of some muddiness and boominess that you might hear. Now, the next thing I like to do is go through my next couple points here, and you don't need to use all of them. Your audio is going to dictate, whether you need to use a lot or a little. So I'm going to grab, let's say, grab point 2, and I like to change them to the bell-shaped curve. So if I just click on this, I'm going to change it to this bell curve, which allows me to make it, really steep or broaden it out with the middle mouse wheel here. So I'm going to go nice and tight with it. And to find something that doesn't sound good, all I'm going to do is play through my clip, bring this up, kind of sweep it around a little bit, listen for something that sounds a little harsh to my ear. I'm like, that doesn't sound good, right? I'm not looking at the numbers. I'm just listening. And then I'm going to make a cut wherever that doesn't sound so good. And I'll decide if I want to, make it a little bit wider and affect more frequencies or less. So let's give it a listen here.
Through a process of working with the audio, and we're going to make it sound better. How's that sound? Pretty good, right? So no matter what kind of audio you've got, Whether you've got DaVinci Resolve 1, DaVinci Resolve 50, you work in a different program, you don't even use Resolve, it doesn't matter. The basics are the basics here, and how we process it.
So when I get around here, it's starting to sound a little I hear a little something I don't like. So I'm just going to make a little cut right around here, and then maybe broaden out the frequencies that I'm affecting a little bit, and then see if I notice a difference. I'll just try a little before and after and see if we hear a difference.
Work through our audio is going to be the same regardless of what program you're using and how you're doing it. So let's jump into Resolve here, and I'm going to teach you step by step how to go through this.
All right, so not too bad, not too bad. I want to check actually up a little bit higher, around 400. A lot of times for male voices anyway, around 400, there's something that's a little that doesn't sound so great. So let's just check that while we're taking a look in this area.
Audio editing process and make that audio that you got right now sound even better. Oh, you can use this sample or grab one of your own clips and you can use that as a...
All right, so you heard that there. I hope you guys heard that, and hopefully it's all coming across all right. But you could hear it kind of just, it sounded bad to me, okay? It sounded a little harsh, right? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a little cut there. Now, how much you cut it, that's up to you. You don't usually have to do a ton. Like, we're not bringing it all the way down to the bottom, of our EQ and cutting it out tons of dB or whatever. Actually, this side we have 5, 10, 15, and 20 dB, right? So maybe I'll cut it like 5, and we'll see how that goes. So now I'll do the same thing with band number 4 here, see if I hear anything. Up in this area, a lot of times between 800 and 2500, that's where a lot of the vocal lives, a lot of the dialogue is. So sometimes you'll find harsh frequencies in there depending on the microphone, right? So let's see if we find anything there.
Sample 2. So let's jump into it, learn some audio editing. Let's go.
And then it should loop back for me here because we set up the loop.
I'm down here in my shop today because we're going to be taking some audio to town and working on it in the shop here. Well, it's kind of in DaVinci Resolve.
All right, so for me, I know a lot of times around just below that 1K, around 800, 900, 1K, somewhere in there, there's something that just sounds a little harsh. So if I just take that out, I think it helps clean it up a little bit. And then as we move ahead forward, it doesn't become a bigger problem, right? Because you might have listened to this audio at first, been like, well, sounds fine to me. I mean, a little echo, but it's okay, right? But as we kind of start to work with it more, some of those problems could get accentuated and become worse as we move down the line. So that's why I like to use EQ towards the beginning of the process here. Get rid of things that sound a little harsh, even if they're not that noticeable, but start by removing those things in the beginning, and then we can move ahead with the rest of the process of editing here. Now, sometimes if your dialogue, say you're using a lav mic, because they're notorious for this, like it's not super clear, it could be a little bit clearer, you want it to be a little bit crisper, we can look in this 4 to 8K range, and we could actually give a little boost there. So I'm going to come down to my band 5, again, and make this the bell-shaped curve here. And I might just give it a little boost, in this 4 to 8K range just to help the clarity of it. Now, let's just try it out on this clip. We're going to see how it sounds. And you can broaden it out a little bit so it's not, affecting a small area. I actually want this to be a little bit more broad. So this is just going to add a little bit of clarity back into our dialogue. So let's give it a listen here.
But we're going to take your audio and we're going to make it sound the best that we can. Whether you're recording on a shotgun mic like I am right now, that's attached to my camera. Maybe you just have the internal microphones on your camera, and that's okay. Whatever you got, we're going to take it.
So this clip, I feel like it's pretty clear. I don't think it's too muddy sounding. Now, if there is extra I'm going to call it mud, and it's a little bit hard to understand, you could do what we did here with 0.5. You could give a little boost in there, right? And you could also make a cut down this way somewhere in that 125 to 200 range. A lot of times you might get a little bit of mud in there, right? That you're it's just not as clear as I want it to be, and I don't know why. You could look down in that 125 to 250 range, and a lot of times you could find one point down in there that's going to be a little muddy, okay? So this up here, if your microphone isn't making it crisp, you can use a little boost here to help make it sound a little bit better. Now, the last thing that I like to do, and again, you don't need to use all these points. You could just find one problem area and reduce that frequency, although I always recommend putting on the high-pass filter here. But while we're here, the other thing that I want to do is I'm going to just turn on band 6, and a lot of times, again, with spoken dialogue, I don't need the real high frequencies either. And that could just introduce sometimes extra, high-end frequency noise that we just don't want to hear. So I would just turn it on and just dial it back a little bit. Doesn't have to be too much, just a little bit, and you'll see we have a little bit up here, but not too much. So I just like to throw that on there just to catch anything that's in that real high frequency range that when it comes to dialogue, we just don't need. So let's just give it a little before and after here, see if we can hear a difference. Hopefully it sounded better already. Let's try it.
Maybe you just have the internal microphones on your camera, and that's okay. Whatever you got, we're going to take it, and we're going to take it through a process of...
All right, so I think it sounds a little bit better. I hope you guys do too, and I hope you can hear it there. Now, as we're working through any one of these parts of the process here, we always want to constantly be looking back at our meters down over here, and we want to make sure we're staying around that minus 10 dB, right? So we're coming down a little bit because we reduced some frequencies. We made them a little bit quieter. We removed them. We're kind of losing a little bit of our audio levels. So in this tool and in a lot of the other tools and effects in Resolve, we can bring our levels back up with this gain slider right here. So I'm going to play through it, just look at my meters and push the gain up so that we're back around that minus 10 dB.
Working with the audio, and we're going to make it sound better. How's that sound? Pretty good, right? So no matter what kind of audio you've got, whether you've got DaVinci Resolve 1, DaVinci Resolve 50, you work in a different program, you don't even use Resolve, it doesn't matter. The basics are the basics here, and how we process and work through our audio.
All right, I think that's a good place to start. You know, we saw the line that stays there for a little bit. That's kind of like the upper limit of where the levels are hitting. So I think that's good enough for us to then go jump into our dynamics. So that's the EQ kind of in a nutshell. A lot of it you're just going to do by ear, right? You don't need to look at the specific numbers. Do it by ear, train your ear, listen for things. If it doesn't sound good to you, then it should probably go, right? Make a little cut there. So the EQ can be a little daunting, but just grab those points, bring them up, drag them around, listen to something that doesn't sound good, and make a little cut there, and that should help improve your audio. So let's go ahead and close out our EQ. And next we want to work with a little dynamics, right? Our order of operations here. The audio is going to our EQ, well, noise reduction, then our EQ, and now our dynamics. So I'm just going to come into my mixer, double-click the dynamics here, and now we've got our dynamics. And in this window, we've got a couple of tools. We've got our gate, expander, gate, say the right ones as I point to them, the compressor, and the limiter. So in our dynamics here, we do have some presets that you guys can use if you just want to pick one and try it and see how it works out. So if I click on the drop down here, you'll see we've got a couple in here. All these ones that say dialogue leveler, dialogue. Those are all presets that are now in Resolve. The other two are presets that I had made. So you could just start out with one of these. Maybe you want to start out with the basic there and see how it does. We've got our graph right here that's going to show us what's happening to our audio. So we've got our input signal, what's happening to our audio in this area. We've got several graphs here that are going to show us what kind of reduction is happening. So the first column here, or the first meter, I call it graphs. First meter is going to show us our expander or our gate working. The middle one is going to show us our compressor. And the third one here would show us the limiter, which is over on this side. Now, typically, I'm not going to use the limiter in here. Generally, I don't use the limiter because the way I've set up all my other audio stuff, I'll apply a limiter at the very end of the audio editing process, like just to catch anything that might be up there. But as I've gone through my process, I've already made sure that nothing's getting too loud, nothing's, in danger of clipping or anything like that. So there shouldn't be a need to use the limiter here if you kind of go through and check all those things as we're working through it. And the compressor is going to take care of some of those parts that might spike up and get a little bit louder for us. So we want to make sure that our compressor is turned on. And let's just play through a little bit of it here and take a look at our graph and see what it's doing with the preset that we picked.
Okay, whatever you got, we're going to take it and we're going to take it through a process of working with the audio, and we're going to make it sound better.
All right, so we see that it's working because this middle meter is lighting up a little bit. And all it's doing is kind of catching the louder parts and it's attenuating them a little bit, right? And it's doing it, in this case, on this preset, by a ratio of 3:1. Now, typically, I like to drop this back a little bit. I like to go like 2:1 or 2.5:1, somewhere in that range. And the threshold here is just telling you, hey, when does that start? When should the compressor start, right? So for any pieces of dialogue that are louder than minus 22 dB, it's going to activate that compressor and it'll attenuate the sound at a 2.5:1 ratio in this case, right? So you can dial this back and it's going to apply more compression based on the levels of your clip, or you can bring it up and it'll apply less compression. So if I just play through, we'll take a quick look at that.
With the audio, and we're going to make it sound better. How's that sound? Pretty good, right? So no matter what kind of audio you've got, whether you've got...
And if you want to reset any of these, just double click the knob and boom, it'll reset. So I'm going to bring this back. Let's just leave this about minus 20 here.
Got DaVinci Resolve 1, DaVinci Resolve 50. You work in a...
All right, so that's pretty good. It's catching some of those louder parts where, I'm speaking a little bit louder. Now, one thing kind of keep in mind is that when you're looking at this gain reduction here, in general, you don't want to go too much more below like a -6 dB right here, because it could just sound a little too compressed, right? It might be like overkill, right? So around that -6, a little bit over is okay, not a big deal, but under there is fine. And that's just something to kind of keep in mind. Now, we have the expander and the gate here, and these are great tools that can help remove some of that background noise or reduce some of it, especially when you stop talking like that and there's some background noise happening. Maybe it's just the hum of your fans on your computer. Maybe it's a air conditioner or whatever. Maybe it's a background noise that's quieter and it's not really noticeable until you stop. Or if you speak slow like that in between your words and phrases where you're maybe taking a breath, you're like doing something like that, the gate and the expander can kind of help take care of those areas. And the way it works, if I just turn it on here, the expander and the gate, they work in a similar way. So if we look at the expander, we've got a threshold right here, right? This blue line. So where does the expander activate? And this is what dB level. So let's say by default, -35 dB is where this expander is going to kick in. And what it's going to do is going to allow us to say, hey, anything below -35 dB or whatever threshold you set, make it quieter faster. So if I were to grab my ratio and just bring this up, we can see once it hits 35 dB, you got that little bit of rumble, low background noise, whatever, it's going to drop those levels really quick, right? And you can see the original, hopefully you guys can see this in the stream here, but the original audio level is going to be this line that goes from corner to corner. So that's where the original level would be for anything, below -35. And what the expander is doing is it's just making it quieter quicker for any of those quieter things. Now we can adjust the range here because, it'll drop down and change a little bit. But the other option is to use the gate. So if I turn on the gate, do you see what happened there? Look right in this area right here, turn on the gate. Boom, it drops it down a whole lot faster. And again, we can adjust our range and drop it down really quick. And a gate is kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's like a gate, right? And it says, hey, when there's audio, if it doesn't reach -35 dB, you're not coming through. We're not going to hear you, right? But if you reach 35 dB, okay, the gate will open and it'll let that audio through. So that's kind of how you can think about it, is a gate's like an actual gate. An expander is kind of like a wimpy gate that's not quite closed all the way, Maybe your gate's sagging, it's broken a little bit. So the expander just is a less intense, I'm going to say option than like a gate. A gate is going to cut that audio off a lot quicker and harder. So in this case, I like to use the expander a lot because most of the time for my clips, I just like to drop that quiet stuff down a little bit quicker. But it's up to you in your clip, what you got and how you kind of want to set that. So when we play through our clip, we're going to look at both and we should see both these meters moving here and know that we're doing something. Let's check it out.
We're gonna make it sound the best that we can. Whether you're recording on a shotgun mic like I am right now, that's attached to my camera. Maybe you just have the internal microphones on your camera, and that's okay. Whatever you got.
All right, I think that's working out pretty good. And we can see we've got both are working. They're doing what they're supposed to do. And I think it sounded pretty good. So the last thing I want to do before I leave the dynamics panel is look at my output meter right here, which is the same meter as down here in my mixer. And we want to look at this because we want to, again, see, hey, are we still at about -10 dB? We want to make sure we didn't lose our level. So let's do that real quick. And if we are a little low, that's where this makeup slider can come in handy. It can help bring everything up as a whole. Our loud parts aren't going to get too loud because we've got a compressor. If the quiet parts are a little on the quiet side, this is going to help make those louder too. So let's just give this a listen.
We're going to take it and we're going to take it through a process of working with the audio and we're going to make it sound better. How's that sound? Pretty good, right? So no matter what kind of audio you've got, whether
all right, I think that's pretty good. I like that. We boosted it up, made it a little bit louder. I think that's pretty good. Now, it does go into red a little bit. That's okay. It's not getting up too high. A little bit of red is not going to kill you. It's not, doesn't mean it's clipping, doesn't mean it's peaking out or anything like that. We just don't want to be up near zero. That's kind of what we're looking for. So I think this is a pretty good spot, but the dynamics can really help take everything from being really loud and really quiet and kind of bringing that dynamic range back a little bit, right? So that way it's a little more even and a little more consistent like we were talking about. You don't want to have your audience ride the remote control or the volume knob on their speakers or whatever. You want it to be different enough that it fits with your video, but not so different that, the quiets are too quiet and the louds are too loud. So the dynamics and the expander and gate, and that's what's going to help you achieve that, as well as the makeup slider here. Let's go ahead and close out our dynamics. I think I'm getting close on time, so let's try and speed her up a little bit here. Next, I want to apply... What? We're good?
I think we're going to have to cut you off to make sure we had time for Q&A.
Okay.
I'm here. Sorry, man.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. I'll just tell you guys the two effects that I like to apply on are a little multi-band compressor and a de-esser. De-esser to take care of any harsh S's, and the multi-band compressor we can use to bring back some body and fullness to our dialogue without any of the problem areas, because we got rid of the problem areas. And even in this clip, you heard it was a little thin sound, and still the multi-band compressor would allow us to kind of bring back the fullness of our dialogue and make it kind of sound more well-rounded and just like fuller instead of thin. So I was going to go through those, but unfortunately we ran out of time. So
good.
Let's get some questions if we got any.
All right. We do have a lot of great questions, so I'm going to hit you pretty rapid fire here. Tyler Seaman, Jason, I noticed that Resolve sounds quiet in program, but upon exporting, the audio is way louder. What are your favorite settings as far as trim and such for your audio preferences?
So, when you're exporting it, if it's coming out louder than you hear it in Resolve, I don't know if it's like you export it and you hear it, or if you're looking on YouTube and it's louder. Now, YouTube, I just learned about a setting and made a video about it recently. There's a setting called Stabilize Audio, which boosts everything up like automatically for you, like your music and everything, because some people don't know how to edit audio, so that's good in that case. But if you set things the way you want, YouTube kind of screws it up for you. So I recommend that you turn that off. But it should be the same when you export it out. If it's not, maybe something in the deliver panel, maybe you're using the, what's it called at the end? The, I forget what it's called. The audio setting thing, like where you can normalize for YouTube or whatever. Maybe it's one of those things is turned on, or you're using that. Here, I don't use it, so that's why I have to look for it here. So I don't know. It's in here somewhere, wherever it is. Well, whatever. It's in there somewhere. But if you go through your audio editing process and you check your loudness at the end, you don't need to use the thing in the deliver page here. And I mean, I don't like using it because then I'm done and I'm like, well, I don't know if it did it right. Like, I can't check the level because it's just applying it on my export. Like, I don't like that. I want to know what it's doing. So you might want to go through and like check your loudness and everything and make sure you're not using that setting on the deliver page, because that could cause a difference for you for sure. But if it's YouTube, it might be that one setting. Otherwise, I mean, for me, the way I edit it is the way I hear it when it's done. So,
okay. Bahal the Gaming One says, I have a video with 5.1 sound. Is there an easy way to adjust only one channel, the center, for example, without splitting this 5.1 sound into separate tracks? If no, how to make it 5.1 again?
So I don't know if you if you were to bring it into DaVinci Resolve, if it'll come in with all your 5.1 tracks, or if you've already got it set up that way in Resolve. It's been a while since I've done any surround sound stuff in Resolve, but typically it's like it'll have your 5.1, bus or whatever, but you've got all your individual tracks going into that, all your different, surround channels and stuff. So you can just adjust them individually there. So unless you don't have like the original, 5.1 edit, then I'm not sure how you get back into it if it's not. I don't even know the file type, but I know if you bring in certain file types, they, it's got all the 5.1 info in it, and you can see it all. So usually you can just adjust it in the track or in the project, but I'm not sure of your setup, so I'm not really sure how to guide more on that.
Okay. Ryan Bliss asks, any suggestions for getting rid of background voices for audio with your voice and people talking in the background, where voice isolation captures and plays all voices?
Yeah, so that's a tricky one because, again, they're voices. So voice isolation is like, hey, let me keep that in there. The best thing that you can try and do is if those other voices are like people that are farther away from you. One, adjust your microphone levels to maybe be a little bit more on the quiet side when you're recording, so that way it's not picking up as much ambient if possible. But if the people are a little bit farther away, you can use an expander or a gate to kind of help bring down those quieter parts and make them a little bit quieter. But yeah, voice isolation isn't going to do anything for you in that case. And even some of the other tools like the dialogue separator and stuff, or some of the other AI tools that are in there, they're not going to be able to pull out the other voices but keep your voice, because it just sees voices as voices. So
Sure.
Expander and Gate's probably the best way to go with that, as well as your setup when you're actually recording. That's what I would do.
Okay. Trevor Hughes asked, Jason, how much would you say you can speed up the audio clip without overdoing it? Naturally, I understand the video will also go faster, and if one did so, any extra effect to think of?
If you were speeding up like somebody speaking, I'm assuming. That's a tricky one. I don't know. I mean, I've never really sped up somebody talking unless I wanted it to sound funny, like a chipmunk or something.
Right,
you know?
right.
I mean, you can adjust things a little bit, like in Fairlight, if you were to use the elastic wave tool, this guy, right? Well, I don't know if you can see my screen, but the elastic wave tool, there's one that's there for voice. So if you were to stretch it or pull it like just a little bit, it's going to kind of compensate the voice for you and make it not sound so like weird. But you got to be careful. You don't want to overdo it. What I would do is I would just talk at your normal speed, and if it's going to YouTube or something, let people click 2 times speed, when they're watching it, and just go like that, because some people want to hear videos slower, some people like to hear it faster. So,
Right.
I mean, depends on what you're trying to achieve too, if it's like a cool effect or something. But I don't know. It's kind of my thought on that.
Sure. Donovan Leon says, hi, Jason. I'm coming from a Pro Tools background. What's the quickest way to group faders in a DCA format and not using buses in Fairlight?
Yeah, so you can, if you didn't want to use a bus, it's super easy to put in a bus, but you can also there's VCAs right in Resolve. So let me just see. It's been a while since I've used them. So yeah, if you went to the Fairlight menu at the top, there's VCA assign.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you can assign, anything to anything and make VCAs if you want. Maybe that would do what you need. Otherwise, I would just use a bus. It's pretty quick and easy just to go Fairlight bus format, make a new bus, and then you could just assign whatever you want to that bus. So
cool. Waddle Arrow says, Jason, is there a way to toggle off the corrections made by the AI audio assistant used in studio only?
I don't think so far. I have tried the audio assistant. I'm not that overly impressed with it. I don't use it. But I usually make a separate timeline or just duplicate my timeline before I try it just to see what it does. Because you can always undo, I guess, but
Sure.
There's no way to turn it on and turn it off. I think kind of what it does is what it does, and you're kind of stuck with that. You can tweak it from there and make changes, whatever you want, but once it's gone through and run that macro or whatever it is, it's kind of done, at least from what I've seen so far. So if you're unsure, duplicate your timeline, try it out, and if you don't like it, at least you've got your original timeline.
For sure. Al Overhauser says, different types of microphones. What are the differences between working with voice microphones versus, say, a contact mic or a hydrophone mic? Do frequencies still work the same way?
So I actually don't even know what those two mics are. but I mean, audio is audio.
I had to look it up because I didn't know either. And I think the hydrophone is like a field recording mic.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
I mean, when it comes to audio is audio, right? It's all going to be,
Sure.
You're going to see it on the same, spectrum of frequencies and stuff. So you can apply the same concepts, and look for things that don't sound good, remove it. If you want to, accentuate a certain area, you want the bass to be louder, you can boost that up. I mean, audio is audio. I don't know that it really matters on what device, it's recorded on. So.
Okay. Not a Secret Agent asks, there was a list of effects mentioned that hit the audio signal before it reaches the usual EQ dynamics effects adjustment. Can you add to that list of effects, or is it fixed?
So it's fixed. It's basically the track level effects.
Okay.
So the voice isolation, dialogue leveler, dialogue separator, music remixer, and the ducker. So the way I understand it is when they introduce these tools, and I mean, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong or if it's changed, is that those are applied in the signal chain like before your EQ dynamics and effects. So those are set. You can't change that. It's just the routing of how they designed it. And there's only those 5 effects here. It's basically what appears in the track effects. I think I got them all. Let me check. Visible. Yeah. Yeah, it's like these 5. So I think that's just how it is, unless it's changed and I missed it. But
okay.
Yeah, so it's just those 5.
Okay. Gideon asks, are there any other studio-only audio effects or features other than voice isolation that you use or have tried?
As far as audio, studio only stuff. Most of the audio stuff is in the free version, really. I think what you get with studio, in addition to voice isolation, is that I found that everything just runs better. Like the whole program as a whole runs better in studio. I do have a lot of like third-party plugins, but I think all those, as far as audio plugins, will still work in the free version of Resolve. I don't think there's any issues with that. So I don't know. I mean, I'm a little rusty on like what's in free versus studio sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of the track effects I think are not in the free version. Like somebody said the Ducker wasn't in the free version. The music remixer is cool if you like, want to just pull out like the vocals of a song because you like the beat. I do like those tools, so I'll use those. Some of the track level effects that are only in studio occasionally, but all your basics that you really need to edit your audio and work through it are all right in the free version, with the exception of voice isolation. That's gonna do the best noise reduction for you. So they're really already all there for you.
Okay. The Pleasure Mate says, what about the presets of the EQ, like male dialogue or the lav? Are they any good, or is it better to not use them, but look at everything on their own?
Yeah, so I forgot that they added those in because, again, I don't use them. Now, I find if I look at those real quick, like they're doing a lot of like boosting of stuff. The one makes a little cut here and there, but I don't know. In general, sometimes they might be okay. I think it depends on the microphone itself and the recording. There's no harm in trying it and throwing it on there, and if it works, cool, you're done. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But if it's not really doing what you want, or you feel like it's missing something, I would just go through the process yourself and see what you could do. Because the whole process, like for me to edit this one clip, and I forgot to mention this, if I did the whole thing, even the parts I didn't get to here, it'll probably take me like 3 to 5 minutes maybe, and I'm done. It's not, it doesn't, once you understand the process and you know what to listen for, like you can breeze through it really quick. It doesn't take that long. So, but I would try them, see if it works. If it works, cool, you're done.
Awesome. That's all the questions I got, man. Jason, that was amazing.
Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being a part of ResolveCon again, man. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Good seeing you again.
Yeah, thank you guys, and thank you everybody out there for watching. Appreciate it. And I do have an audio course actually. If you want to learn all this stuff in one spot, make a little mini documentary.
Check it out.
You can check it out on DV Resolve. So you can check that out. Or
DV
YouTube.
Resolve, you say?
DV Resolve.
Guys, give it up for Jason. Thank you so much, brother. We'll see you around.
Thanks.
Take care. All right. It's our final giveaway of the day, you guys. I'm so excited. Giveaway number 5 for the editor titles and editor collection pack from Whip Templates. The winner of that is Justin Fincher. Congratulations. The $100 motion VFX credit goes to Jan Javi. And the winner of the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO G2, congratulations, Jerry Curry. You are the new owner of that. Thank you so much. If you want any of those, you'll be sent an email here probably tomorrow when we get all caught up on this stuff. And and again, if you haven't checked out the VIP tickets for the 2 days starting Saturday and Sunday to get some private education from some of our presenters, you guys, you're not going to want to miss this. Make sure you click the link in the description below. And a reminder, at groundcontrol.film, we are running a 25% off store-wide sale on all of our courses. Make sure you use coupon code RC25GC at checkout. So that concludes our presentations for today, guys. Day 1 of ResolveCon is officially wrapped. Thank you everyone who joined us. Thank you to all of our presenters, and thank you once again to all of our sponsors. Thank you Blackmagic Design, DV Resolve, Motion VFX, Whip Templates, and Pixel Tools. We literally couldn't do this without you. You guys, thank you so much for being here, and we will see you bright and early tomorrow morning.